Okay, so we are recording now. Before we get into today's discussion, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dr.Zarin Tasnim Pollen, and I'm a cognitive neuroscientist specializing in human attention and digital behavior.
Great. Let me ask you something simple first. When was the last time you went an entire day without checking your phone? I don't mean just putting it down for an hour. I mean a full day. No scrolling, no notification. And how did that feel?
Mm, you know, it's interesting because I actually tried this a few months ago. I shut my phone off for a full day, and what struck me wasn't just the absence of distractions, but the sheer weight of silence. It was almost unsettling at first, as if I had lost a part of myself. And that's a terrifying realization, isn't it? That we have so deeply intertwined our sense of self with a device to the point where simply being done with our own thoughts feels foreign. The fact that it took me several hours just to settle into that state of disconnection tells me something profound. We are conditioning ourselves to be perpetually stimulated to the extent that true stillness feels unnatural. But by the end of the day, I also felt something I hadn't in a long time: sovereignty over my own mind. My thoughts were clearer, my focus sharper, my emotions steadier. The real question isn't, can you go a day without your phone? It is, who are you when you do? And if that question scares you, maybe that's exactly why you should try it.
There's a psychological concept called variable reward reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addict, built into social media and digital platforms. Have you ever found yourself reaching for your phone almost involuntarily? What does that tell us about how much control we really have?
Oh, absolutely. I've had moments where I pick up my phone and I don't even remember why. I will open an app, scroll for a minute, and then just snap out of it, realizing I wasn't even fully conscious of the decision to do it. And that's deeply unsettling, isn't it? Because what it implies is that these platforms have engineered themselves to bypass our conscious decision making processes. You are no longer actively choosing to engage, you are being compelled. And the terrifying part is that it works not because we are weak, but because it taps into something biologically fundamental about human psychology. When a slot machine delivers a win, you get dopamine hit. When social media gives you a like, a comment, a notification, it's the exact same in reinforcement cycle. Except now, it's being built into the very structure of our social lives. It's no longer just about entertainment. It's about identity, validation, and belonging. And when these things become externally detected, well, you have to ask yourself who's actually in control here.
Here's something interesting. When people do a real digital detox, they often say they feel more present, more alive, even more creative. But they also say they feel disconnected, like they are missing out. What do you think that reveals about how much our identities are now tied to digital world?
Well, that's the paradox, isn't it? On one hand, when you step away from constant digital stimulation, you regain a kind of cognitive clarity. Your attention span improves, your anxiety levels drop, and your ability to engage in deep, uninterrupted thought returns. But at the same time, you are also confronted with the reality that so much of what we perceive as connection now exists in a digital space. When you detox, you are not just pulling away from distractions, You are pulling away from the version of yourself that exists online. And that can feel like a kind of existential withdrawal. What that tells me is that we are not just using digital platforms, we are inhabiting them. They are no longer just tools for communication, they are environments where we construct and curate our identities. So when you detox, what you are really experiencing isn't just the absence of distraction, it's the absence of digitally meditated self. And if that leaves you feeling lost, then maybe the real question isn't about screen time at all. Maybe it's who am I when I'm not being observed.
Many argue that social media and digital entertainment serve as a form of escapism, an endless distraction from life's deeper existential questions. Is it possible that the rise of digital addiction is really just a symptom of deeper crisis, one of meaning, purpose, and identity in modern world?
Hmm. Well, I think that's exactly what's happening. If you look at human history, people have always found ways to distract themselves from existential discomfort, whether it was mythology, religion, or philosophy. But those distractions weren't empty. They provided structure, meaning, and narratives that helped people understand their place in the world. Now, we have replaced those things with infinite scrolling, right? And the difference is that social media doesn't give you a framework for meaning, it just delays the question. It lets you avoid the discomfort of introspection for as long as you keep consuming. Do you get what I mean? But that discomfort doesn't just disappear, right? It lingers beneath the surface. And that's why we are seeing record levels of anxiety and depression, despite being more connected than ever. It's very bad, actually, because deep down, people know something is missing. They just don't know how to sit in silence long enough to figure out what it is.
Alright, so here's the final question. If we continue at this pace, where people's attention span shrink, where real human connection is replaced by screens, where most of our thoughts are dictated by algorithms, what do you think the long-term consequences will be? And where does this end?
Hmm, pretty nice question. Where does it end? That depends entirely on whether people are willing to take their own consciousness seriously. Because if we don't, we will end up in a world where attention is so fragmented that deep thought becomes a relic of the past, where real conversations, genuine, vulnerable, difficult conversations, become impossible because people simply lack the patience to engage in them, where algorithmic narratives shape not just what we see, but how we think. But the flip side is this: human beings have an incredible ability to adapt. We have overcome existential crises before as well. And I think we are reaching a breaking point, a moment where people are starting to realize that constant connectivity isn't making them happier, it's making them numb. And when people wake up to that, they will start seeking something deeper. So maybe the real question isn't where does this end? Maybe is at what point do we decide to take back control?
Thank you very much. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you a lot for giving me the space to exchange
Okay, so
my
before
knowledge.
we start the interview, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mohid and I'm a student in Xiamen University, Malaysia.
Okay, so the first question is, when was the last time you went a whole day without checking your phone, not just putting it down for a bit, but actually not using it all day? How did that feel?
I honestly don't remember, maybe never. Even when I go on vacation, I still check my phone. I feel weird without it, like I'm missing something. I guess if I had to do it, I'd be really bored at first, but maybe I'd get used to it. I don't know, I've never actually tried.
You know how sometimes you pick up the phone without even thinking, like you just unlock it, start scrolling, and then you don't even know why. That's actually a trick app uses to keep you hooked. Do you ever feel like you are not really in control of how much time you spend on your phone?
Yeah, all the time. I'll be like, let me just check one thing, and the next thing I know, it's been an hour. It's kind of scary when you think about it, but also, I don't really think about it that much. It's just how life is now, right? I feel like everyone does it.
A lot of people say that when they take a real break from their phone, they feel more focused, creative, and even happier. But at the same time, they feel like they are missing out on something. Why do you think that happens? Do you think we are too attached to being online?
I mean, yeah, being offline probably feels nice, but also, what if something happens? Like, what if people are talking about something and I don't know about it or I miss a message? I think we're just so used to being connected that being offline feels kind of scary. Like, you don't want to be the one who doesn't know what's going on.
Some people think social media and online stuff helps us escape the real life problems, like we scroll or binge watch to avoid thinking about a stressful thing. Do you think people are addicted to their screens because they don't want to deal with bigger issues like figuring out what they really want in their life?
Oh, that's kind of true. I definitely scroll TikTok when I don't want to think about stuff. It's just easier, you know? Like, why sit there stressing when you can just watch funny videos or text your friends? But yeah, I guess if you do that too much, you never really deal with things. But I mean, everyone does it, right?
Alright, last one. If we keep going like this, where no one can focus, real conversation are replaced by texting, and algorithms decide what we see and think about. What do you think will happen in the future? Where does this all lead?
I honestly don't know. I feel like people will just keep getting more addicted. Like it's already kind of bad. Sometimes I see kids with iPods and I think, wow, at least I didn't grow up that attached to a screen. But when I remember I'm on my phone all day too, maybe in the future people won't even talk in real life. They'll just message each other while sitting in the same room. That would be kind of sad, but also kind of convenient.
Okay, that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.